Welcome to episode 35. Here's your news feed for the week. Have you all seen the most devastating graph in Biden's entire presidency? The Wall Street Journal released a couple graphs side by side this week. Information from the Federal Reserve on the change of household net worth, comparing these figures in Trump's whole presidency and Biden's presidency through the end of 2023. Take a look at the chart on the left. In the adjustment for inflation, for which Biden is largely to blame, most of the household net worth in Biden's presidency has been in the negative, which is what you would expect in an administration with wretched economic policies and a Congress which spins into oblivion. But this comparison is electorally devastating, or at least it should be. I'm sure the press secretary will find a way to blame it on Trump or COVID, which are one and the same. Speaking of Biden and devastating news, in the last few weeks, the Biden administration has intentionally withheld sensitive intelligence on Hamas from Israel. They've also withheld support in our supply of bombs and other weapons, all of this in an attempt to deter Israel's advancement in its full-scale invasion of Rafah, the final destination for the Hamas militants. Well, nothing will stop Israel from accomplishing its mission. A war was declared on October 7th. Israel will not cease until Hamas has been eradicated from existence. All the other pot shots from surrounding Iranian proxy militias, like the Houthis and Hezbollah, are just a normal way of life for the Israelis. Hamas is different, though, and they will be destroyed. A globalist so-called criminal court has zero jurisdiction, and they can't do a thing to stop Israel from serving justice on behalf of the thousands of Israelis dead. And Biden can't do anything to stop it either. Israel will do what it is set out to do, with or without the support of the United States. One thing that will help Israel, though, is the accidental death of the Iranian president.
And breaking news.
Hello and welcome to our viewers here in the United States and all around the world. I'm Paula Newton and we are following breaking news out of Iran, where state media has now confirmed the death of President Ibrahim Raisi and the country's foreign minister after a deadly helicopter crash. Now, rescue crews are now at a staging area. Those are live pictures where they are trying to assess where exactly the wreckage is and to begin their recovery efforts. Iranian officials say the helicopter ran into trouble amid heavy fog on Sunday afternoon. Images of the crash site in Iran's East Azerbaijan province show the remote mountainous area where the aircraft went down. And you are looking at a photo of it right there. The president and other officials had been attending a ceremony for the opening of a new dam near the border with Azerbaijan. Rescuers faced difficult weather conditions overnight, including cold and heavy fog, as they scrambled to locate the crash site.
No one is legitimately claiming any nefarious activity here. Iran is not blaming anyone or anything except for the foggy weather conditions similar to Kobe Bryant's death. Israel had nothing to do with this. We had nothing to do with this. It was purely accidental, but an event that the people of Iran are celebrating. Now, why would they be celebrating their president's death? Well, his name was Ibrahim Raisi, but his nickname was the Butcher of Tehran. And this is linked to his mass executions of political prisoners when he was deputy prosecutor in Tehran. 5,000 Iranians, 5,000, associated with opposition groups were executed under his leadership. Raisi has even been sanctioned by the United States and other countries for his involvement in human rights abuses. And this goes without mentioning the American blood shed by the Iranian support of militias throughout the Middle East, and of course, under his leadership. So, in other words, he was an evil man and a horrible leader. That's why people are dancing in the streets and shooting off fireworks upon his death. Now, not everyone is rejoicing over his death. Some people are offering their heartfelt condolences, like the Biden administration. The United States expresses its official condolences for the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Amir Abdollahian, and other members of their delegation in a helicopter crash in northwest Iran. And there's your president, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what will this actually accomplish? Well, probably not a whole lot. The president definitely runs the government in Iran, but all of this is under the supreme leadership of Ali Khamenei. He's really the head of the Islamic snake over there. That's a real theocratic fascist, a true genocidal maniac, a tyrant, and an oppressor. But no, let's hurry up and lock up Netanyahu. There was something actually hilarious that came of this event, and that was this false narrative, a joke, that a Mossad agent named Eli Copter was the one to kill Raisi, and Hamas didn't think it was a joke. They were actually circulating the news in their group chats as a fact that this Eli Copter was the secret agent to take out their boss in Tehran. And someone on X pointed out that these are the same geniuses that the liberals have been getting casualty numbers from with zero verification. We actually have a picture of Eli. Take a look. So there's Mossad agent Copter, a hero to the oppressed Iranians and Jews in Israel. I think we might be in the clear on the campus protesting since school is coming to a close for the semester. But this also means that we're heading into the month of June, which is notoriously the holiest month of the leftist calendar. Pride Month is that full mid-year month dedicated to one of the 7 deadly sins, in which the Rainbow Club of sexual perversity parades in the streets. It's only gotten more and more hedonistic and debased and degenerate, to the point now that leftist parents abuse their children by bringing them to these demonstrations of depravity. We all know how disgusting it is, and so does the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. That's why they released a terror watch last week, which read, "Foreign terrorist organizations may seek to exploit LGBTQIA+ related events and venues, including events during 2024 Pride Month, celebrated in June," the FBI and Department of Homeland Security warned in a recent public service announcement. Organizations like ISIS may seek to exploit increased gatherings associated with the upcoming June 2024 Pride Month, according to the announcement which the agencies issued last week. The announcement added that the threat is compounded by the current heightened threat environment in the United States. As you should surely know by now, militant Islamic groups are so extremely offended by homosexuality that they'll execute these people in a very gruesome fashion. You know this, but the college-age protesters who form the group Queers for Palestine, yeah, it's safe to say they don't understand this. The thing that stood out to me about this story is, why is the DHS warning about a terrorist organization who's halfway around the world? Could it be that ISIS militants have infiltrated the United States through our porous southern border? Surely these subjects concerning the economy, immigration, and the Middle East will come up in the debates between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. The debates were confirmed last week, and now the two of them are going back and forth about demands and requirements, but they've gone outside of the Presidential Debate Commission, or the group that usually oversees presidential debates in election season. And this all seems quite obviously intent on excluding Robert Kennedy Jr., who is fuming over being excluded from these debates. Now, there's one prominent conservative talk show host who was pushing the theory last week that RFK will get to debate, and they've got the first debate historically early in June so that the Democrats have time to get rid of Biden and swap him out with RFK before the second debate. And I've got to say, my video on this subject last week got several comments of people wanting to see RFK in the ring with both Trump and Biden. And I've talked about in the past how I think Robert Kennedy is the only plausible chance the Democrats could have for electoral victory this November. But there's one huge problem with all of this. Biden is the head of the Democrat Party. He decides who's on the ticket. He decides if he gets to debate. He's the chief Democrat. That's just how it works. He won last time. He's the president and the head of the party. And this after half a century in government. working his way up to become the commander-in-chief. So he's not going anywhere, folks. And honestly, that's great for the election this November. Now, you probably saw that Biden's requirements were that there be no audience present for the debate in June because they know that Trump absolutely kills with an audience. But there were actually far more demands put out by the Biden team, and these are completely real and authentic. Take a look. Number one, Biden's microphone must be edible. The flavor, however, may either be chocolate chip or mint chocolate. Number two, Biden must be allowed to sniff the hair of the moderator before the debate. No exceptions, not even for Jake Tapper. Number three, the debate must be held in a remote location with no chance of any witnesses, like a WNBA game. Number four, no one can ask any questions about the economy, inflation, Afghanistan, Gaza, the border, crime levels, Ukraine, Hunter Biden, Ashley Biden, campus protests, Title IX, or any other topics in existence. Number five, the only network allowed to carry the debate is Al Jazeera. Number six, each candidate will be allowed one IV infusion line for drugs. Smelling salts must also be available. Number seven, candidates can phone a friend unlimited times. Number eight, the White House reserves the right to have the role of Biden played by Tom Hanks. Number nine, the debate will end after 12 minutes or when Biden falls asleep, whichever comes first. And finally, number 10, Trump must agree to drop out of the presidential race and go to jail. We've got a lot more for you today. I'm Blake Watson, and this is We the Free. One of the best ways you can help our show other than by sharing the content today is by picking up some We the Free merch at wethefreeshow.com. You can be the Salt and Light you were meant to be by wearing the Salt and Light shirt or by sipping your coffee from the Salt and Light mug. Or you can sport the God Bless America shirt and of course our classic We the Free crest tee. We've got stickers and a Smells Like Freedom candle, so check out our merch today at wethefreeshow.com. If you throw a stone into a pack of dogs, the one that yelps is the one you hit. A friend taught me that. It means that the person or group that reacts strongly or defensively to criticism or accusations may be the one who feels guilty or responsible. And a defensive response can even reveal more about the person's deeper feelings or motivations than the accusation itself. Well, much of the yelping we've heard online, the shrieking and howling of feminists, influencers, talk show hosts, politicians, and more, says more about them than the substance of the commencement speech we'll be discussing today. You may have already heard some of this story, but I'll guarantee you that you haven't heard all of it, and you haven't heard my take on the whole ordeal. I promise you'll walk away today with more religious and philosophical knowledge than anywhere else. So let's begin with the subject of our conversation, Mr. Harrison Butker. Harrison Butker is the 28-year-old kicker for the three-time Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. You've probably heard of them. Travis Kelce, their most popular player, is dating the world's biggest superstar, Taylor Swift, and their quarterback, Travis Mahomes, may go on to be one of the best quarterbacks to play the game of football. The Chiefs are a dynasty team now, and this is in part thanks to Harrison Butker, who not only holds franchise records with the Chiefs, but is one of the best kickers in NFL history. He's made almost 90% of all his field goals in his career. Harrison and his wife Isabel have two little kids, and the Butker family is devoutedly Catholic. It is this success and Harrison's Catholicism that earned him the invitation to give the commencement speech for the graduates at Benedictine College, a private Catholic liberal arts school in Kansas, the state where Harrison lives and is employed. Well, Harrison gave this speech a couple weeks ago. It was about 20 minutes long, but the words of this speech, which we'll discuss today, has provoked the ire of countless women, liberals, feminists, and more beyond belief. What could a successful Catholic man at a Catholic school say to Catholic graduates that would be so controversial and irritating? Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. Harrison's speech can really be summed up in one word and possibly a corresponding phrase. The word is vocation, and the phrase is stay in your lane. Both of these require absolute clarification because, as you'll see, the overwhelming majority of scathing, seething, squawking reviewers neither gathered this theme nor watched more than a 10-second soundbite. So let's talk about the word vocation. I have to confess that I also misunderstood the use of this term, as did every single radical feminist out there. I, because I'm not Catholic but Protestant, they, because they're likely atheistic or agnostic, but we who misunderstood the use of vocation took it to mean like that of a job or a career. But that's not what it means. It means something much more significant. In Catholicism, the term vocation is derived from the Latin word vocare, meaning to call. So it refers to a calling from God to a particular state of life or a way of living. So this concept is rooted in the belief that God has a specific plan for each person, and that discovering and following this plan leads to ultimate fulfillment and holiness. So with that basic understanding, here are the four main vocations, or the four most popular vocations recognized by the Catholic Church. The first is the priesthood. And this is the calling to serve the church and the community by administering the sacraments, preaching, and providing pastoral care. Therefore, in this vocation or calling, priests dedicate their lives to spiritual leadership and guidance. The second is the religious life, which refers to joining religious orders like, nuns and monks, for example. They take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, all to live in a community which pursues a life of prayer and work and service. This is their vocation or their calling. The third vocation is marriage. This obviously involves a lifelong commitment between a man and a woman to love and support each other and to raise a family. And this is really important. The purpose of this vocation is that it is seen as a path to holiness through mutual self-sacrifice, giving, and raising children in the faith. And then finally, this fourth one that we're going to talk about, this fourth vocation, is that of the single life. Some individuals are called, or I would say spiritually gifted, to remain single or unmarried, dedicating their lives to God and serving others without the commitment of marriage. This is what the Apostle Paul did. Now, this is really important, which I briefly alluded to. Each vocation, the calling, is seen as a path to holiness. This is what God is calling you to sanctify you and involve you in the mission of the church. This is where you will find ultimate fulfillment in your life, and it is where I think you would find your closest proximity to God, spiritually speaking. So vocation is not your career. Vocation is your great calling, that state of life to which God is calling you. My pastor words it like this: there is someone you were made to know, which is God. There's someone you were made to be, which is conformed to the image of his son, so like Jesus. And there's something that you were made to do in Christ Jesus for good works. The Catholic culmination of all this is in vocation. So vocation, or that particular state of life to which you're called, helps you to know God best. It sculpts you into the person you were made to be, like Christ, and it involves a specific list of duties and responsibilities. This is symbolized in Harrison's repeated phrase in this speech, stay in your lane. This means to lean heavily into your vocation or your calling. And as you'll see, staying in your proverbial lanes and adhering to our spiritual callings and states of life, this is the cure for culture. It's the remedy for the home and family, and it is the solution for the broken and fractured church. With this theme in mind, Harrison states his case right up front providing numerous examples of our society devoid of leaders who succeed in their vocations.
While COVID might have played a large role throughout your formative years, it is not unique. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder.
Abortion, IVF, surrogacy, and euthanasia. These are all major issues concerning life. Harrison lists them and mentions other degenerate cultural values, secular values, that are all a result of disorder. That's his way of saying that failing to live the lives God is calling us to results in the cultural chaos and genocide plaguing the West. And this starts at the top with the leadership in our homes, our churches, and our governments.
Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice.
We've talked about this subject a lot this year, along with episodes covering IVF and surrogacy. We played a clip of the Archbishop in Washington, D.C., calling President Biden a cafeteria Catholic, meaning he picks and chooses which facets of the faith that he likes and just ignores the rest. In other words, he's not a Christian, not according to Jesus Christ. But Harrison is correct. It's impossible to be a Christian and be simultaneously supportive of a murderous industry which snuffs out the lives of millions and millions of the most innocent and defenseless in our society. But he doesn't stop with the president as the only one who's failing to live his Christian calling.
He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it.
I appreciate this as a Protestant person. My being Protestant or claiming that I'm Christian is quite frankly meaningless, the claim. So according to his allusions there, Anthony Fauci, the driving force behind the tyrannical overreach of the federal government during COVID, and any of those who are championing transgenderism at the top, they and the president profess Catholicism, but they're a bunch of frauds. Now, this is how Harrison Butker begins his speech. We're not even 3 minutes in. So he knows that he's blasted out of the gate, guns blazing, and that's why he says this.
These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition.
We just talked about this last week, and we've talked about it many times in the past. The pacifistic church is not biblical, and it's the reason for the destruction and the devolvement of society. The way that I constantly express this idea is that we, the church, we haven't been the salt and light we were supposed to be. We also talked about the difference between being nice and being kind. Jesus wasn't nice. He was the embodiment of kindness, a fruit of the Spirit or a divine characteristic of God. Kindness represents genuine care and an authentic desire for the welfare of another. Niceness is superficial and inauthentic. It only seeks to be pleasant, unobtrusive, and cooperative. Well, the Christian church for too long has taken the latter approach to its weak discipleship and its evangelism. Hence the reason for our loss and our losses. As Harrison said, the Church of Nice is not a winning strategy. But this is our bowing to culture.
Our Catholic faith has always been countercultural. Our Lord, along with countless followers, were all put to death for their adherence to her teachings. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We fear speaking truth because now, unfortunately, truth is in the minority.
Truth is in the minority, and the enemy knows it. This is why the heat has been turned up against true conservatism and genuine faith, because the enemy can smell blood and is pressuring ever more closely to cultural victory. This is why the world says, shut up, leave your religion at home, don't bring that in here. Harrison takes a shot at DEI, correctly labeling it as tyrannical, and this is because diversity, equity, and inclusion is actually racism, exclusion, and inequality. And again, all of this is the result of an across-the-board failure of leadership. Individuals not following Christ into their vocations or their sweet callings.
But make no mistake, before we even attempt to fix any of the issues plaguing society, we must first get our own house in order, and it starts with our leaders.
He's talking about the church, and you would almost think that Harrison listens to this show because we've been saying this for a while. But in truth, Harrison and I align in practically every way because we both submit to the authority of Scripture and its divine author. I have to say, though, it is incredible to see a Catholic and a Protestant agreeing on almost every single subject that he mentions in this 20-minute speech, including this point, that the beginning of societal repair begins in-house. We've talked about this twice over the last month with 2 Chronicles and God's conversation with King Solomon as our example, that progress, real progress, depends on our humility, our prayerful pleading, our idolic departure, and finally repentance. Harrison here, though, focuses on the church leadership, and he makes a good point. It's hard for the sheep to lead the shepherd, and that's not even how it's supposed to work. But it's the reality today. Pastors, priests, bishops, and clergy, they have to be the ones to lead the way in order for there to be revival in America. So we cannot put the cart before the horse here. We have to clean our own house and get our own affairs in order before we can have any cultural impact. Huge point.
But this does make me reflect on staying in my lane and focusing on my own vocation and how I can be a better father and husband and live in the world but not be of it.
Again, this adds clarity to the meaning of vocation and shows that Harrison is even pointing the speech to himself in the critical analysis of all things current. How can I be a better husband, a better father? How can I live in the world but not be of the world? In other words, how can I be the man God wants me to be for my wife and children? How can I live a holy life, set apart and sanctifying? Now, there's several ways that you could label the factions of society at the moment, but one bit of nomenclature that we could use for today is that one group, the conservatives, not the capital C conservatives, but the conservatives hold near and dear to the ideals of tradition and preservation, hence the name conservative. The opposing group wants to forsake tradition and abandon all things related, and they call this progress. That's why they're called progressives. You could go even further to say that liberals view conservatism as stifling and arresting and oppressive for its adherence to and preservation of traditional values. But the real conservatives understand that there's no freedom in a land without limits, laws. There's no freedom or liberty in subjective values and morality. And the Associated Press wrote a hit piece on Benedictine College about a month ago related to this very idea. It was a piece by Tim Sullivan titled, "A Step Back in Time, America's Catholic Church Sees an Immense Shift Toward the Old Ways," in which he went on to illustrate this conservatism and tradition as the opposite of positive progress. Well, Harrison clapped back.
I am certain the reporters at the AP could not have imagined that their attempt to rebuke and embarrass places and people like those here at Benedictine wouldn't be met with anger, but instead met with excitement and pride. Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it, but the true God-centered pride that is cooperating with the Holy Ghost to glorify Him.
That was a precision shot at the Rainbow Club, much needed as we near the summer. But the pride demonstrated in June by the Rainbow Society is in complete opposition to divine pride, or as Harrison called it, God-centered pride, which serves the purpose of glorifying God, not ourselves, as the worldly pride exclusively does. I think the opposite of good pride is shame. When we're ashamed of the God we profess to follow, Jesus himself stated, "Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in his glory." In other words, Christians must take pride in our Lord. And the context of that verse shows us that only the real Christians will. And this instead of being shamed into silence and submission. Now back to this idea of vocation.
Being locked in with your vocation and staying in your lane is going to be the surest way for you to find true happiness and peace in this life.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most important points of the entire speech. Don't miss this, and I'll read it to you again. Being locked in with your vocation and staying in your lane is going to be the surest way for you to find true happiness and peace in this life. So this is what's about to happen. Harrison is about to separately address the women and the men who are in attendance. What he's about to tell them is his advice on finding true happiness, fulfillment, and peace. And this is because these are the inevitable result of living according to the divine calling. And just to be clear, no one is perfectly doing this. Everyone is on a journey. So some are far from their divine calling, but some are as close as they can be on this earth in fallen bodies with, corrupted natures, no matter what the Pope thinks. In other words, there are lives that we can live that will be somewhat fulfilling, but they won't be as fulfilling and sanctifying as the most ideal life to which God is calling us. With this in mind, let's begin with Harrison's address to the women in the audience.
For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Despite what the screaming hyenas on TikTok have been saying, you can rewind and listen again for yourself. Harrison does not condemn women in the workforce. He congratulates them for attaining their degrees and completing their education. He correctly predicts that many of them will go on to successful careers. These are the ones dreaming about promotions and titles and work-related accolades. And he also correctly predicts that many of them, if not the majority of them, are dreaming about their future families, i.e. their husbands and children. But he hasn't made his point yet. Let's continue before we analyze.
I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. She's the primary educator to our children. She's the one who ensures I never let football or my business become a distraction from that of a husband and father.
I wanted to make sure and play every bit of that because none of the naysayers wanted to include the 20 seconds of cheering and applause because that undermines the progressive ideology of radical feminism. Isabel Butker didn't find ultimate happiness and fulfillment in employment or career success. She found it the moment that she prioritized her husband and her children. And Harrison proudly and tearfully expresses his heartfelt gratitude for this devotion to her vocation. She chose to pursue the divine calling on her life to be, as Harrison called her, a homemaker. Do you know what homemaker means? A homemaker is one who manages a household. This isn't an episode of The Handmaid's Tale. This isn't involuntary servitude or slavery. This woman has chosen the high calling of a life in service to her family. Harrison says she's the primary educator of their children, and she's the one who keeps the family focused. She's the one that keeps him on track. In other words, she's critical to the welfare of their family. And this is precisely biblical. So now, the point has been made. The majority of women will find ultimate happiness, fulfillment, and sanctification in prioritizing the traditional roles of women in regard to the love and care of their families, i.e. their husbands and children. This is even statistically proven. But the atheistic and uneducated buffoons are unaware of the vocation of the single life, the religious life, the priesthood, etc. And this is why they thought that Harrison was telling every woman to forget their careers and just pursue marriage and motherhood. No, this is not what he was saying, because this isn't even what the Catholic Church believes, because it's not what the Bible teaches. The reality, at least in our culture, is that it's impossible for most women to totally abandon the workforce in order for their family to make ends meet. This fact illustrates further that Harrison is not calling for some kind of mass resignation from females in the office. Instead, what he's saying, and what every sound priest or pastor would tell you, is that your life must be ordered properly for optimal success, happiness, fulfillment, etc. And the ranking is quite simple. You want to live your best life? You want to prioritize appropriately? Are you ready? Here's what should be your top 5 priorities in life. Starting with number 1. Your top priority should be your relationship with God. So God is number 1. Your spouse is number 2. Your children are number 3. They are not tied with your spouse. Your job and your career is number 4. And then everyone else and everything else comes after. When these things are disordered, you begin to fall apart. Your marriage begins to fall apart. Your family then falls apart. And when the family falls apart, churches and societies consecutively follow. The woman you see here is significantly happier and more fulfilled than all of the radical feminists out there, because she is living one of the most ordered and significant lives a woman can possibly live as a Christian wife and mother. The radical feminists have none of these things. The further that they progress into the feminist worldview, the higher up the corporate ladder they climb, the more promotions and title recognition they get, the more they feel the inescapable void of dissatisfaction. You don't have time for relationships, but especially a family. A bunch of these women will get married, but they're basically just roommates because they're symbolically married to their careers and success. That's why they don't have any kids. That's why so many women murder their babies. They surely don't have a genuine spiritual life or a relationship with Christ. Their list of priorities includes three things: me, myself, and mine. In other words, feminism is the loneliest and emptiest life one can live. And that is the diabolical lie of feminism. There's actually a great awakening of sorts happening in regard to feminism. I've seen so many videos of young women realizing how much of their lives they've wasted because they prioritized career success and just shelved the whole idea of marriage and motherhood for some later date. I've seen personal testimonies of these women heartbroken and crying over the time and, quite honestly, the age that they'll never get back. Not to mention, the longer one waits for marriage, the more difficult it becomes to find a mate. There's even a trending topic online and on social media which uses the nomenclature of trad wife, which is a shortening of traditional wife. So I'm going to show you two examples of this because, hey, I get it. I'm a man. How dare I tell women how they should live their lives and where to find ultimate fulfillment and godliness? So I'll show you two examples of millennial age women who have forsaken the supposed glitz and glamour of a radical feminist life to pursue a traditional life. This first example is a 28-year-old woman named Ivy Van Dusen. She's an entrepreneur and a stay-at-home mom. She's also Miss Arizona and competed in the Miss America pageant last year. Here she is explaining the growing trad wife trend.
I think it's been really interesting to see how shocked people are by the term trad wife and how they seem to think it's some new way of living, like it's some unprecedented new trend. Like, have you seen these millennial and Gen Z girls? They just want to be at home with their kids. They want to have husbands and they want to take care of their husbands. They want to cook and they want to clean and they want to wear dresses. It's insane. When in reality, it's literally like the oldest lifestyle in the book. Before this, they were just called stay-at-home moms. And before that, they were just called women. But now our society has gone so far in the feminist direction that anybody who wants to live like a little bit old school and a little bit like how women used to live is fringe, right? Like an extremist. And I just think about how so many of us, since we were little, we were raised in this kind of boss babe feminist society that told us you can be so much more than just a mom. You can be so much more than just a wife. And so many of us listened and we, tried to climb corporate ladders and we boss babed so hard. Now, like, we're a little bit boss babed out. And some of us want to go a little bit more back to our roots, to our ancestors, to the women who came before us and live a little bit more, like they did. Call us crazy, but we like babies. We want to have babies. We want to spend the very few years that we have of them being little with them. We like cooking, we like running a home, we like supporting our husbands and having good marriages. And yes, we also appreciate cute dresses. The audacity. So call them trad wives, call them stay-at-home moms, call them whatever you want. But just know that no matter how much you try and push the career and the boss babe and the feminist lifestyle onto women, there will always be women who naturally want a more traditional lifestyle. Just like the billions of women who came before us.
Beautifully stated. Now, I want you to meet Hannah Nealman. Hannah is a former Miss New York City and a graduate of the Juilliard School in dance, as in she's an actual ballerina. She coincidentally was Miss South Dakota and also competed in the Miss USA pageant. Now, though, she's a mother to 8 children. She lives with her family in Utah. They operate a farm where they raise pigs and cattle and more livestock. They produce meat for sale, herbs and spices, utensils, candles, kitchenware, plateware, soaps, and more. Hannah homeschools her kids. She has over 9 million followers on Instagram. 9 million. 7 million on TikTok and over 1 million YouTube subscribers. Take a listen.
My name is Hannah Nealman. I am Mrs. American 2023. I'm a mother of 7 children, almost 8. I'm expecting a baby in December, our Christmas baby. I'm also a business owner, a homesteader, wannabe homesteader, learning all those things. I was once a professional ballerina. Feels like another life ago, but once a ballerina, hence the name of our farm, which is Ballerina Farm. My husband and I are first-generation farmers. Neither of us grew up on a farm. There was beauty in creating things and working for things, and hard work and manual labor was all, part of it, and it was a beautiful journey. And so I feel like Daniel and I, I was a professional ballerina. We got married in New York City. We were living a life very different to the one we live now. I guess we both started to crave something that we could work together on. We wanted to, build a family in a place where we could build something together. And so here we are 6 years later on a farm milking cows. There's so many resources and different outlets that you can take to support yourself on a small farm these days. I mean, you don't necessarily have to go start a farm because I know that's not practical for everyone, but for those of you where you are feeling that desire and need, hopefully there's enough information that we offer and encouragement that we offer that you can do it. And I'm so excited and very grateful to be sharing this mission and my platform on the Mrs. World stage coming this January in Las Vegas.
What's particularly nasty are the droves of women attacking these women and women like this who choose to adhere to their calling in life, this traditional feminine life. Why do you think Hannah has such a huge following? Well, it tells me that there's a massive interest from women everywhere to pursue a more traditional life and to forsake the diabolical lie of radical feminism, which places career success and profit over faith, family, and true freedom. Let's go back to that picture of the Butker family to see the other woman pictured there. The woman behind Harrison is his mother, Elizabeth Butker. She's had a successful career in experimental physics, working in both academic and research settings. Elizabeth earned her bachelor's degree in physics from the University of Georgia and later obtained her PhD from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She has published numerous research papers and received various awards for her contributions to the field of physics. However, despite her career, she's always been a dedicated mother. She managed to balance her work and family life, providing support and encouragement to her children. So in other words, Elizabeth Butker graduated from one of the top schools in the country, went on to have a highly successful career, and this despite the appropriate prioritization of God first, family second, and everything else third. Surely this had some kind of effect on Harrison seeking a mate. Harrison says of Isabel,
"She is the person that knows me best at my core, and it is through our marriage that, Lord willing, we will both attain salvation."
Now, for my Protestant friends, this is a very Catholic way of expressing the sanctity of marriage, but let me explain. God's purpose for marriage in the perfect, sinless world was procreation and companionship. God's purpose for marriage in the fallen, sinful world has evolved to serve as a sanctifying union. God uses marriage to refine the individuals within it, and this is demonstrated quite clearly in the New Testament epistles. The husband and the wife love and respect and serve each other, and in the process of doing so, God purifies and sanctifies both of them. He makes both persons more like himself as the relationship progresses. And this is, of course, if the two of them do the marriage the right way. It takes two to tango, and you've got to play the right song. So yes, in a way, God can use his divine calling on your life to marriage to produce in your life the fruit of salvation. That's a deep subject, but we don't have time today to fully unpack such a significant idea. I hope you understand at least the gist of it. However, it's important here to remember the vocations. God doesn't just call people to married life. He calls some to the single life, in which he would use the vocation to sanctify that person. It's the same with priesthood, etc.
I say all of this to you because I have seen it firsthand, how much happier someone can be when they disregard the outside noise and move closer and closer to God's will in their life. Isabel's dream of having a career might not have come true, but if you asked her today if she has any regrets on her decision, she would laugh out loud without hesitation and say, heck no.
There's no further explanation needed, and this is sufficient enough to silence the so-called feminists who are attacking the very idea of a woman choosing to follow her calling into a significantly more fulfilling and sanctifying life. I'm sorry, but that's the true definition of proper femininity. Not this vicious get the man and forsake the traditional norms and family. You know, choosing to be an excellent wife and mother is one of the hardest responsibilities a woman can ever undertake. And that's not to say that there aren't great difficulties in singleness and in employment, but the vocational calling of homemaker is one of the most difficult. Yet when done properly is deeply fulfilling to the woman. Speaking of proper femininity, Harrison then moves on to masculinity in addressing the men in the audience.
To the gentlemen here today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. As men, we set the tone of the culture, and when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around the nation. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the US, and a correlation could be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy.
So who is it who says that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities? The radical feminists. No, in reality, both are absolutely necessary to the order of our homes and communities. Women can be leaders, but men are to be the ultimate leaders in the home, in the church, and in society. But the biblical submission makes people uncomfortable because people don't understand what that entails. It's verses concerning the woman's submission to the man that makes the feminists just vomit in repulsion. But really, what the Bible describes is mutuality. The husband is to love his wife as Christ loved the church, his bride. That describes a sacrificial love because Christ's ultimate act was laying down his life for the church. And then you have the divine Trinity. Numerous scriptures demonstrate Jesus' equality with God the Father, yet a submission to the Father's will. Therefore, the man's position as leader is not as a commanding officer or a slave driver. It's perfectly described as an equal servant leader. This is the humble position that Christ took in his ministry, and it's the same role the husband and father must fulfill in his home. As for the women, look no further than the 31st chapter of Proverbs, or the female disciples of Christ, the women who supported Jesus' ministry, or the women who helped lead in the very early Christian church. So the gender roles are quite clear throughout the totality of Scripture and societal history. Husbands are to be the protectors, providers, and leaders. Women are to be the nurturers, caretakers, and are providential in different ways. That's how God made us. When civilization follows the biblical customs and norms and traditions, everything is better. From the home to the church to the public square, people are happier and more fulfilled, and the reason is unmistakable. It's because this is divine order. This is the way God intended for things to be. And don't misunderstand me, or Harrison for that matter. Not everyone is called to the vocation of marriage, but the broader point is that people are no longer leaning into these divine callings, and absolutely everything is a glorious mess. That's why Butker says that when this order is disregarded, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in, and voila, that's what we have. The challenge, though, that Harrison alluded to is that creating and maintaining order is hard. He's talking to the men specifically when he says, do the hard things. And today, being properly masculine or being godly men is the hard thing to do. It's the hardest thing to do, especially when the culture wants to emasculate men entirely. And not just figuratively, but literally in some cases. It takes a real man to be a man of God, like Harrison. And I can think of many others like him, men who are unashamedly the men God calls them to be, who stand for what's right and speak against the evils that plague our families, our churches and our societies, if not currently living, in the past. This also means making men masculine again and women feminine again. It's no accident that the two genders have been so demasculinized and defeminized to the point of androgyny. Manly men are to be properly masculine, and womanly women are to be properly feminine. This is the divine order, and that's just about the extent of it. Shocking, I know, it's crazy. I thought about showing you some of the reactions to this, but that would be a colossal waste of our time. So I'll just mention some reactions, like the city of Kansas tweeting out where Harrison lives. That's called doxing, where you publicly disperse someone's private information like that. The cowardly and woke NFL released a statement which sought to simultaneously distance themselves from Butker and support free expression. Ironically, though, they've never put out a statement on the ever-growing list of criminals which inhabit the league. Never once a statement on the murderers, rapists, the domestically violent, or the drug-abusing criminals who suit up every Sunday. Don't forget how they promulgated the anti-patriotism of Colin Kaepernick, too. And lastly, a petition was hosted on change.org with almost 150,000 signatures to have Harrison removed from the league. And for what? Being Catholic? Expressing his religious convictions? His opinions? Mind you, this is just weeks after thousands of people in America openly called for the murder of Jews and Americans. And where were all these social justice warriors and defenders of women's liberty? Oh yeah, that's right. They're all on the same team because politics makes strange bedfellows. Now, regardless of all this hatred, animosity, and intolerance, Harrison Butker's jersey became the top-selling jersey in the NFL. In fact, his jersey sold out online. The speech has almost 2 million views online. But let's make a little more sense of all this opposition, the yelping. Take a look at Jesus' words in John 15:18 through 23. He said, "If the world hates you, you know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love its own. But because you're not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, because of this, the world hates you. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. But all these things they will do to you for my name's sake, because they do not know the one who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not have sin, but now they have no excuse for their sin. He who hates me hates my Father also." The world hates Harrison, and they hate us because of our identification with Christ. They hate God, and they hate His order. Therefore, they naturally persecute us as they're persecuting Harrison right now. But it is an absolute blessing to suffer for Christ and to know with confidence that one is on the right side of things. Now, speaking of marriage, next week is my 9-year anniversary of marriage to my wonderful wife, and we'll be hitting the road for a quick anniversary trip. So I won't see you for a full episode next week, but that's going to do it for me. What'll it be next time? We'll see. For now, go and be the salt and light you were meant to be, and we'll see you next time on We the Free. Thanks for watching this clip. Listen, I want to make sure that you stay informed on the news and the biblical response to it, so do yourself and us a favor and hit the subscribe button before you go. Then we would love for you to go check out wethefreeshow.com to grab yourself some merch to spread the word of We the Free. And we're also going to put a video on the screen that we think that you'll like. Now go and be that salt and light, and we'll see you next time.